Welcome to Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 45, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Little.
This time we're looking at Pandora's Ark, the science and ethics of the de-extinction process. Up next.
Pandora's Ark. That's the thing that Harrison Ford wasn't supposed to look into in the first film. Is that right?
No, pay attention. My kid's girlfriend, I'm trying very hard not to use people's names without prior consent,
Smart.
is ridiculously smart. And while on vacation in Hawaii, she brought up the topic of de-extinction.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. She was around dinosaurs and she was trying to connect with them.
Exactly. I signaled you because she said this was maybe a topic we could talk about on this program.
Sure.
And about 3 seconds in, you and I were both completely fascinated by this idea.
I'm a dog with a bone on this one.
We humans did an interesting thing back in April of 2025. Some will say we de-extincted the direwolf, but I'm not going to go that far. I'll say we created a direwolf proxy. They are genetically modified, hybridized modern wolves gestated in the womb of a domestic dog.
Where else would you gestate them?
This is a huge controversy. Most things related to gene editing are GMOs, cloning, and de-extinction are all related. And if you're against humans interfering in genetics, you must not like bananas, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, chicken, corn, carrots, cows, house cats, and watermelons. The list goes on and on. We made all these things, and they bear very little resemblance to their wild predecessors.
All I'm saying is if you can de-extinct it, I can barbecue it.
That's true.
Woolly ribs sound delicious to me. I would try them.
You have real issues.
I do. Delicious issues.
Okay, the Lazarus Project, the science and ethics of de-extinction without the barbecue. Let's go.
No barbecue, I'm out. What's the point?
It's estimated that over 99.9% of all the species that have ever lived on Earth are now extinct. The average lifespan of a species is estimated to be between 1 and 10 million years, a relatively short time in geological terms. While mass extinction events have accelerated this process, the majority of the extinctions have occurred as a natural part of the evolutionary process. De-extinction, the process of resurrecting an extinct species, is a frontier where cutting-edge genetic science meets profound ethical dilemmas. As companies like Colossal Biosciences actively work to bring back animals such as the woolly mammoth and the passenger pigeon, a complex web of scientific and ethical questions emerges.
This is super interesting, right? Because like you think of the concept of extinction and there is no going back. The whole point is that it's gone. And now there's like, well, maybe sort of we can go back the other way.
You can't step in the same stream twice. We'll come back to that. The science is incredibly challenging, from piecing together ancient degraded DNA to engineering a living proxy that can survive in a modern ecosystem. I think the science of rediscovering the original DNA of these animals is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing that we can do this. That, I think, is really cool.
What's even more fascinating to me is if you just think on like orders of magnitude, we've been around as a species, call it hundreds of thousands of years, give or take. We've only even known of the technology to do this for, roughly speaking, 100 years. As a percentage of our time as a species, it's been very small that we've had any ability or knowledge of how to do this, which just breaks my brain.
Beyond the technical hurdles, we must confront the moral implications. Do we have a right to bring these animals back? And if so, what responsibility do we bear for their welfare and for the potential ecological disruption they might cause? The de-extinction debate forces us to weigh our ability to reverse past mistakes against the risk of creating unforeseen problems, all while considering if these resources would be better spent on protecting the species we still have.
You'd better off putting that money into crypto.
How does Colossal Biosciences make money? How is this going to be a commercial company? Besides opening little parks?
Okay. When fiction crosses back over into nonfiction, like, well, we got a small island. We're going to put some dinosaurs on it. People are going to come visit. And you're like, I've seen this pitch before. I don't think it ends well. I got to believe part of this is like you develop the technology and you're going to find a path to monetizing it. I don't really know.
Yeah, sure.
It's really fascinating to me. I mean, these guys have like mid-9 figures deployed or at least raised against this. So they've raised real money.
I think it's fairly easy to say I'm going to de-extinct woolly mammoths and raise money.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're going to say I'm going to de-extinct the bubonic plague rat, that's probably not going to work out as well for you.
No, somebody's going to invest in that, right? I'm sure the North Koreans are going to want to dump some money into it or something. Somebody wants a bubonic plague rat running around. Wasn't it the flea?
It was the flea.
Yeah.
The rat was just as vital a part of an ecosystem as the woolly mammoth was. I mean, that's you think about the fuzzy cute animals are the ones that, the direwolf pups are absolutely adorable. You think about the fuzzy cute animals, of course we want to resurrect them as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And I think that's what gets more attention than, conserving some rando bird that's likely going to go extinct in 3 days due to inbreeding versus, we're bringing back the woolly mammoth. Which one gets more news?
Yeah, of course.
Bringing back the woolly mammoth.
Dolly the sheep was cloned in 1996. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Her birth was publicly announced in in 1997, and it sparked a global sensation.
I remember.
Her significance was monumental because she was the first mammal ever cloned from a differentiated adult cell, a mammalian cell, from an adult. She was not cloned from an embryonic cell, which are already in a state of development. It was widely believed that specialized adult cells like skin cells, or in Dolly's case, a mammary gland cell, could not be reprogrammed to create an entire new organism. It wasn't like the direwolf went and checked his DNA into some library somewhere so we'd have a complete copy of it. We don't. What they've done is they've pieced together various pieces of genomes that they have found, and the computer interpolates and puts it together, and basically sort of reassembles. In some cases, it's best guess, but mostly the real thing.
Yeah, I mean, they have a reasonable facsimile of a direwolf.
Dolly's creation shattered scientific dogma. Her birth proved the genetic information in a mature, specialized cell was still complete and could be used to generate a full animal. The breakthrough opened up new possibilities for genetic research and sparked intense ethical debates about the potential for human cloning. While the technology's primary purpose was for agriculture and medical research, the public's imagination was captured by the idea of cloning people, leading to widespread discussion and, in many countries, new laws regulating cloning.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I think, the first time I remember the cloning debate being in the public's eye, right? I know there had been talk of it certainly before scientifically, but it was
huge.
It got a lot of news. I mean, it was like primetime, nighttime news.
Sure.
And to see where we're at now, 30-ish years later, is kind of fascinating.
Drop back in the genetic debate. There was a while, not that long ago, 150 years or so ago, where eugenics was a big thing. How can we make the perfect human by selective? And it was like super racist and it was crazy. Let's drop back a second. So that people who aren't really familiar with what's going on, what is de-extinction?
The definition is not clear. Like, people are labeling different things with it. The general consensus is that de-extinction is bringing back a species that no longer exists. De-extinct, kind of undoing the extinction. The problem is you can't actually do that. You can't get a carbon copy of a woolly mammoth. When you see de-extinction, that's not what you should think. Instead, what you're getting is traits of one of those species. And right now, we're combining them with other things. And the problem is, if you haven't read about this, DNA degrades over time. Even when it's frozen, right? When it's frozen in the tundra, you get these gaps and errors, which is why with the direwolf, what they've done is they had to pull from multiple samples to try to fill in the gaps. It's not like you're going to just get mammoth DNA out of one extraction and be able to duplicate from that. That's part of the problem.
But then you have to put that embryo into some other type of wolf. In this case, they decided its closest living relative was a gray wolf, which, by the way, that was debatable whether or not that was his closest relative.
As a quick aside here, they are working on this construct of artificial wombs, but we don't have those yet, to my knowledge. So you have to put it into something else. That's what they did with the direwolf. They put it into the uterus of a gray wolf, and then deliver them via cesarean section. But you still have another problem too, which is when the quote de-extinct species is born, which again is really just a gray wolf that has been spliced in with some of the direwolf's traits. And to be clear here, for rough numbers, you're talking about like what looks like a high number, 99.9% similarities between the direwolf and the gray wolf. But then you realize like there's still a lot of gaps. You're talking about billions of pairs.
You're 99% of a chimp.
Exactly, right? And it's like, but like if the comparison of DNA is all things that have DNA, you're like, well, yeah, of course, you're not 99% a whale. Well, I am, but other people aren't. Regular people aren't. So the point is, you still have millions of pairs that are different between a gray wolf and a direwolf. Millions. They've changed something like on the order of 20. So they've given it the characteristics, I think, that us as humans look at and go, oh, looks like a direwolf.
Looks like a direwolf. Looks exactly like a direwolf. Like, we don't obviously have a direwolf to compare it with.
But it's kind of like early AI, right? Like early AI, and by early, I mean like a couple of years ago, you'd be like, oh, this thing's super smart. It knows everything. You spend a little more time with it and you're like, no, actually,
this thing just make things up.
Little hallucinations. So the point is,
this thing's a big liar.
But to get back to your question, the de-extinction is not getting a same genetic copy. And if you did get a direct second copy genetically, you're still missing the sort of epigenetics, right? That these chemical markers that control how genes are expressed, those are shaped by the environment, by diet,
for sure,
by the maternal womb chemistry. All of these things are gone.
The gut biome is going to be different. I mean, all the things that we know now help contribute to who you are.
Yes. And then the environment that thing is born into, it no longer exists. Generally, it's warmer everywhere. The prey for that animal and their predators have changed. The fauna has changed. The social element doesn't exist because they're not born to other gray wolves. Especially with wolves, they're very social animals. So all of that is to say you're not getting a direct copy. You're getting some attributes of.
The direwolf's environment still pretty much exists intact. It hasn't changed a lot. The direwolf lived down the street from me. Literally in Los Angeles with all the traffic, it was fine with all that. They found tons of direwolves in the La Brea tar pits.
Yeah.
Yes. So they were here. No. My neighbors don't like the coyotes. Can you imagine if we had direwolves roaming around all of a sudden?
Man, I cannot wait for the next door posts where they're going to be like, the direwolves are everywhere. Hey, those coyotes aren't so bad. The funny part is, who's going to be posting on Nextdoor is going to be the coyotes. It's going to be the coyotes partying on Nextdoor.
Very upset.
They're going to be really pissed that these direwolves are moving on their territory.
This direwolf ate my cat.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't live in California, any California Nextdoor neighborhood is basically 80% full of just coyote postings. That's all we see on them. But this is why we call the direwolves a proxy. The ones we've sort of brought back.
Yeah.
They're proxies for direwolves. They're not really clones. I think for the most part, everyone with knowledge of this agrees, right? Even the Colossal Biosciences is saying, look, this thing is a proxy, right? We brought elements of it and reintroduced those.
Although when they talked about it in their introductory video, they did say they de-extincted whatever animal they were de-extincted. It was like, this is really a bad word choice.
I mean, look, they're redefining it to mean a thing. I'm not going to get wrapped around the word choice. At the end of the day, if these folks want to keep doing the science that they're doing, they need to raise money. And I think a lot of that comes with the spin and PR you put around it. So, all right, I'm going to see through that and look at the science.
Yeah, you and I disagree on that. I don't think when you raise money, you should be bending the truth in any way, shape, or form. But that's another discussion for another time.
But I don't think they're bending. I don't think they're saying we brought back direwolves full stop.
They use the word de-extinction and then they quickly redefine what de-extinction means.
Well,
they're saying it fills an ecological gap, that when the direwolf passed away, when the direwolf went extinct, suddenly there was no one to fill that role in the environment. And so there were lots of changes occurred because they were no longer around. Whatever.
Sure.
The environments that the direwolves lived in are gone.
Yeah.
What they preyed on is gone. Those things don't exist anymore. Those things have all gone extinct.
That's the point. The environment's gone.
Short of learning to drive a lift, the direwolves come back and they drive Ubers because that's what they would have to do in the modern version of their environment. Their environment has changed so much. How else are they going to make a living?
That's great. So you're gone for 10,000 years. You come back, you're now driving for Lyft.
Sure.
And then like 3 years later, you're extinct from that by Waymo.
Yeah,
perfect.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what they want. By the way, no thumbs. How do they hold the steering wheel?
I don't know, but think about how West Hollywood has changed since the direwolf roamed this territory.
Totally.
And probably most of them were killed by people who were raising sheep.
I love the direwolves coming back, walking down Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood and being like, wow, this is a lot nicer than I remember it. This is really like all the restaurants and everybody here. So
they retain the memory.
They retain the memory. Totally. Yeah, they've retained. Yeah, the memory's burnt in there.
That's awesome.
And just like, oh, look at that. Oh, hey, Rage still exists. Oh, Rage is going to be here forever. All LA jokes, folks.
You raise an interesting question, though.
Yes.
Do you think we are ethically obligated to de-extinct species that humans drove to extinction, such as the passenger pigeon or the woolly mammoth? By the way, the dodo also is sort of, not directly, but we caused their extinction. The dodo bird laid one egg and they laid it on the ground. And when we brought in things like wolves and dogs and pigs and whatever else, they just walked over and ate the eggs and there was no more dodo bird.
Dodo was like, well, now what?
Exactly.
That's my one egg. Come on, bud.
I'm a flightless bird. Where else am I going to lay my eggs?
Exactly. I love the dodo example. I think we're ethically obligated. Personally, no. And after looking at this, no, I don't think we're actually ethically obligated. There are, I think, good arguments for it. Like the most sort of common one I see here is, well, we as humans kind of broke this thing, whatever that means. Now we've got to buy it. We've got to repair it.
Dude, we have so massively broken it.
My response to that is, well, wasn't that part of the process? Like, wasn't that, yeah, sure. We stepped on some things and we caused some, like, chipmunks can't live on my house now because my house is where it is. Chipmunks can't live under it. Do I need to bring back more chipmunks?
This is the biggest problem is we've taken all their land. We've taken all of that land where all of these animals would have lived and we've built McMansions and little gated communities.
Well, then folks are like, well, okay, and this has sort of been Colossal's argument is, well, you're restoring the ecosystem. I'm like, but to what? Like, if the ecosystem has changed, if that bird or that species can no longer live because it's warmer or there's less trees, isn't that the natural next step? Isn't that supposed to be what happens?
Or now there's a cattle farm on his property.
Yeah, I look at that and I'm like, I'm not entirely sure about that. And then I think where a lot of this is centered, and this is my observation, not what folks are saying, is that there seems to be some sort of moral redemption. It's like, well, we did these things, we feel some obligation.
And now we can undo them. We can fix them. Sure.
Now we can, quote, undo them. Like, well, first of all, you're not undoing them. And second of all, I'm like, well, isn't that just an excuse to play with the tech? Like, because I love playing with the tech. I'm not, but to say like, oh, we're undoing some wrongs of before, I'm like, I don't think that's actually true.
Yeah.
Right? And
I'm not sure playing with the tech is wrong.
Oh, I don't think it's wrong at all. I think playing with the tech is great. I think this is tech we want to have.
Yeah.
But I don't think the goal is like, well, we need to bring back the mammoths. It's like, well, because if you're going to bring back the mammoths, why not bring back a better mammoth? Why not just be like, well, well, we're going to flip all these bits around and just make the super mammoth. Okay, what's the difference?
Boy, the catastrophic effects. But of course, the catastrophic effects of the mammoth not being here, it's sliding doors. We have no way to do an A-B comparison on these things because you don't have two worlds where you can do one where you recreate the mammoth and one where you don't.
I mean, you could. You'd be like Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere. You guys get the woolly mammoth.
Put up a big fence.
Oh, hey, we're halfway there on North America. Just keep going.
This brings up a whole other issue with the dire wolves.
Yeah.
Wolves should have hundreds of thousands of acres to roam.
Yeah.
These dire wolves that they have created, there are two of them together.
Yeah.
Shortly, the third will be added to their group.
Yeah.
They're very isolated. They're not in a big pack or anything like that. But they only have 1,000 acres. That is their
2,000
area.
acres, I think. But still, point is it's small.
But it's a very small area. These animals require enormous amounts of land for stimulation. The woolly mammoth, if it is truly related to the Asian elephant, requires millions of acres to be able to roam for its mental stimulation, or it's going to feel claustrophobic.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. My argument would be, though, if you could ask the dire wolf, would you rather exist on a smaller plot of land or not exist? I think they would answer to exist on a smaller plot of land.
Are they miserable?
But this goes back to my point where if the world has gotten smaller because there is less land for the wolves to roam, then shouldn't we not have wolves? Like, shouldn't that be the evolutionary next step?
And now instead of wolves, we now have a Costco.
Yeah. You have more insurance salesmen. That's what you traded them for.
You've taken things away, but you've put up new things.
Every place there's a wolf den, you now have a State Farm office. That's basically how I think this works. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Look, there are a lot of arguments against as well. Yeah. We talked about one earlier. You can't really bring them back. You're not bringing back an exact version of that. So it's
barely a distant cousin.
Yeah. And I mean, also, let's be clear with exact version. Every single instance of a dire wolf, just like every other creature, is different. They just differ by less than the thing that we brought back. So which one are you calling a dire wolf? The first one, the 25th one, the 80,000th one? I don't know. My point is they're all very similar and we're way farther away from those. There's also the argument of the resource drain, right? If you're putting energy towards this, what are you not putting energy towards? Should we be conserving species that are on the planet as opposed to bringing back others?
I'm not sure there's a 1-to-1 on those dollars. I'm not sure that the dollar that is being raised.
Oh, it's probably 100-to-1 or 1,000-to-1 on those dollars, right?
I think that money might have been spent doing something else entirely. We might have been building some bridge somewhere. Instead, we used the guy who said, "Oh, let's invest in recreating the woolly mammoth."
Sure.
I mean, that money wasn't necessarily going into saving existing species.
It seems reasonable to believe that it was more likely going to end up somewhere in kind of conservation. But your point is extremely valid in my opinion. Who knows, right? Like, so that money could have been going into funding more home automation thread controllers. Who knows?
Sure.
Which I would be all for.
I mean, it seems like it could have gone to anything. Investment money is not necessarily directed toward a cause always.
Okay, so you get a couple other arguments against, which would be the suffering. The lab creation of these don't always end well, and you end up with critters that have issues.
Severely maladjusted, Even cloned creatures don't necessarily have good health outcomes.
So I would argue you want to know well what the expectation and delivery of the end is to justify the journey, and not just go down the journey without knowing the justification of the end.
On the other hand, let me backtrack. The modern cow, the thing you love most to barbecue, which, by the way, I can't imagine the cow's that fond of that. The cow,
I don't ask them,
was originally an extraordinarily large, aggressive, nasty animal. This was not the cow that you have on the farm today.
Sure.
We created that. Just because guys weren't doing it in a lab with white coats, we still modified the genetics of that thing to create what is now this giant meat sickle.
Am I supposed to be aroused or hungry? I don't know what you're doing right now. Because I'll be honest, I'm both. Of course.
What I'm saying is I'm not sure all of this genetic modifications where humans are intervening is necessarily bad.
Oh, it's not. That's my point, is it's not. Like, you're going to end up with some what I'll call odd byproduct, just as you did with interbreeding before. You had plenty of species that had breathing problems or didn't fare well. I just think that now, with it being in a lab setting versus a farm setting, makes it inherently different.
And that's a perception difference. You're still modifying the genes.
I agree with you 100%.
We've done some horrific genetic modification. Think about just for a second the wheat stalks that are somehow completely not edible by insects. I mean, this is a disaster. This should never be allowed. Yes.
Why?
You get a much bigger yield out of your wheat, but you now don't have all sorts of insects who are causing other effects to the ecosystem that we desperately need.
Okay, but I think when you're scaling up wheat, like you're putting wheat in a bunch of places that didn't have wheat before. I'm not sure that you're adversely affecting the ecosystem in a bad way. I'm not saying you're not affecting it. I'm saying I'm not sure you're affecting it in a bad way.
The animals that eat those insects that we're going to eat that week. This goes on and on. This is the most complex puzzle you could possibly put together.
Of course.
And to interfere with it at a genetic level so that this food is inedible by the insects that you think we don't need, you're being really short-sighted.
I absolutely agree with you on that. I mean, there's a John Muir quote on ecosystems, which is like, when one tugs at a single thing in nature, he finds it's attached to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
Nothing is more true than that, for sure. But this is where I sort of, as I think about this and talk about this, I go through these states of like, oh, it should be this way. Oh, it should be that way. And then I sort of come back all the way around the Rubicon back to, oh, it should just be the way that we want it. Because at the end of the day, us screwing around with the ecosystem is us screwing with the ecosystem.
Could be part of the ecosystem, sure.
It is part of like good or bad. Like we have ascertained, at least for now, to the top of the pyramid, and this is what you do. So what is the end? Everything, every single thing on this planet is going to go extinct at some point.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. There's nothing we can do about that.
I started this off saying 99.9% of the creatures who have lived on this earth already have gone extinct.
Yeah. And all the rest of it will. So the question is, what will be left and when? Well, that's a fantastic question. And what do you want to do along that journey? These bring up some really interesting philosophical questions. But at the end of the day, personally, I don't think we're ethically obligated, but I do feel like we are, because we are the at least most of us, are the most sentient things on the planet. We're at least ethically entangled.
Oh, for sure.
I think we have to think about this ethically. As long as it's clearly benefiting the ecosystem and what we want for living creatures, then it makes sense, but not doing it because like we get some moral high ground or because we get to, IPO some tech companies.
We get no moral pass on having caused animals to go extinct.
Totally. So the arguments for like the dodo, which is a fantastic example of like bringing back the dodo, and they're like, well, it could teach us some things about genetically modifying other birds that are in danger that might go extinct. Maybe those should go extinct. Maybe that's the right answer. Should the dodo still exist?
Yeah.
Like, really, should the dodo still be a thing? I'm getting stuck on why that dodo should be brought back, right? A proxy,
I don't know.
What role does it fill? And that's the part where I get kind of stuck on this. And I'm like, I'm not entirely sure.
But on the other hand, did we have a right to take away its land to change its environment? We interfered. We caused the problem.
I mean, did we have the right? Sort of. I mean, I think sort of. Like when you ascertain, when you climb all the way to the top of the pyramid, you sort of have earned the right.
Is that right?
For now. I don't know. I think so.
I think what you've earned is the responsibility.
Yes, of course.
To take care of and oversee.
With that comes the responsibility, but at what cost? And that's the part where I get stuck. I'm just like, well, at what cost should we bring back the dodo?
A dodo proxy, sure.
Or some copy of the dodo, or keep these other species around? I don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, I know a world with none of these things is terrible, and then we all perish.
The Jenga puzzle that is an ecosystem, though, is so complex.
Yes.
And trying to refill a hole that because you pulled something out you shouldn't have pulled out.
10,000 years ago. Well, but see, that's where I question is shouldn't have pulled out. What means it shouldn't have pulled out? The direwolf went extinct for some reason. I don't know what it was, but for some reason.
Because farmers wanted that land, and so they were killing off the direwolves that were eating their livestock.
Okay.
I think that's the primary reason why they went extinct. I don't know for sure. I wasn't there.
Let us assume that is true. Now what? Like, do we have an obligation to bring them back? Like, we need farmland to grow the population. So do you want less people and direwolves? Or direwolves and more people, but you still need the land? Now they live on smaller lands, but that's not what they grow. Like, it just doesn't. I look at the whole thing and I'm just like, no, I think we're okay without them.
Especially since they were going to live in my neighborhood.
This is why Indy didn't look in the Ark. You don't look in the Ark.
I'm going to wrap this up by saying I think it's really cool we are looking into the Ark. I think it's really, in this case, I think it is really important and fascinating that we are having these conversations and that we are staying curious and that we are capturing some of this DNA that if we weren't capturing it now would probably be forever lost. I mean, there are things colossal biosciences are doing that are really good for the planet. They're really helpful. I mean, read about their stuff that they're doing for red wolves that they've been able to come up with. Some of these things seem like they are really positive inventions.
Again, do we need red wolves? I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. It's really, look, I want the tech to exist. I don't really know how to use it. I think this is a fantastic science fiction / philosophical question that is really interesting to consider. There's all sorts of elements of this too that are worth talking about some other time, perhaps. Like,
for sure.
By the way, all of this IP gets owned by somebody. You can't own the DNA.
Right.
You can't,
that's weird.
You can't own the DNA of the direwolf. However, the modifications you make to the gray wolf to make it direwolf proxy,
it's proprietary.
You can own. It is proprietary. arbitrary, right?
That's bizarre.
And you can patent for some period of time. You get 20 years that you can just be the owner of direwolves. What's fascinating to me about that is like, that can't matter because on the scale of geological time, 20 years.
20-year patent right is nothing.
Who cares? Okay, great. Enjoy your direwolf monopoly for 20 years. And then we all get to clone direwolves.
Yeah.
Whatever your version of it is. But it's fascinating. Like, we are not ready to support this as a construct. We just aren't. Like, none of the systems are.
But we need to discuss it so that we can get more ready.
I just never, in all the 30 years I've known you, I've never known you to be so pro insect. Based on the mosquitoes I have at my house, I want to replace all the wheat with plastic. So like, I have slightly different view than you. I get it. I do get it. But like, there is a curve to this. Like, there is a number of people that this planet can sustain, even with technology. I don't know what the number is. I don't even know if we're 10% of the way there.
Sure.
But there is a number where you go, it's actually out of resources, despite what technology you have. But right now we're going on the like, well, with more people, you need more food. And like, that's where most of this GMO comes from. I'm not convinced that it's all bad. I'm not convinced that the output of not having insects that can eat the wheat is net bad. It's net different for sure, but I'm not convinced that it's net bad because you're now growing more wheat in places.
For more humans to live, which is its own problem.
I think that's a big part of the goal, though.
I think in the ecosystem, you want to have as much ecological diversity as possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that starts with the wheat that the insects need to eat.
Yeah, but if you're growing wheat in a place that didn't grow wheat before, you didn't have the insects there.
We're still growing wheat in the same fields where wild things were growing that those insects could eat.
If you back out of this, if you just take 2 big, maybe 3 big steps back from the direwolf and the genes and the splicing and the DNA, to me, the question is, do you want every species that has ever existed to exist? Do you want every species that exists now to not go extinct? I'm not sure either of those are really good goals. I don't know. Some modicum of conservation makes sense to me for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like setting it as everything does not make sense to me. I just don't know what the balance is. And I think it's a really interesting question to think about. I'm sure people much, much smarter than me have good ideas for this. Science, these audacious sort of goals have pushed technology. We tend to get net positive benefit out of that.
And I hope that's the case here. I'm a lot less concerned about the giant creatures we create for our amusement park destroying and harming us. I'm much more concerned about the welfare of those animals who we create, those animals who we are creating in situations that are not the situations where their genetic predecessors, as it were, lived. And now they're required to live in vastly different environs.
I mean, I get it. If you just picked me up and airdropped me into Florida, I'd hate it too. So I understand.
All right, before we clone you, we have to get out of here. But quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Do not clone me.
I don't even believe in cloning dogs.
Yeah.
We have tons of dogs who need homes.
Yeah.
You do not need to clone a dog. Please go to a shelter and adopt a dog. We do not need to clone dogs.
In my opinion, is a very reasonable and a very realistic argument. Yes, I've seen something amazing. It's very simple. Nature. Sort of fitting to this episode.
Yeah.
We are both fortunate enough to live in the greatest state in the union, which has the benefit of a very diverse terrain and ecosystems. We have the best people. And as many say, we have America's most handsome governor. So that alone is enough. But I spent over a week or so with my kids up in the sequoias, or the woods as people call them.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just able to disconnect from the everyday world, right? So that's incredible. It gives you a chance to sort of reconnect with the rock that we're on.
So beautiful up there.
And I can't underscore enough how valuable I think this is. I think just connecting with nature, seeing trees, getting dirty, walking in streams, I really do think we all benefit from it. And it's a great sort of palate cleanser. It's a mental reset. If you live in California, really go visit the sequoias, go to the redwoods in the northernmost part of the state. It is beautiful. It's terrain you're not going to really see anywhere else on the planet. And if you're not here in California, just get out into nature for a couple days. Just go touch grass, people. I promise you can find a way to benefit from it greater than you expect going in. So that's my recommendation for the week. How about you?
Jurassic Park, of course.
Of course.
No, I'm not recommending Jurassic Park. It's a great ride, but it doesn't make a lot of sense as a story. The dinosaurs can't see you if you're not moving. Okay, well then they would crash into walls and trees and things. So not that one.
You are so unfun to take to a movie. You're like, oh, look at the dinosaur. You're like, they could totally see you.
Oh, totally.
All right.
Instead of the puzzles of recreating extinct life, I'm going to recommend Wordplay, the 2006 documentary film, a delightful and surprisingly suspenseful look into the world of crossword puzzles. The film's primary focus is on Will Shortz, the revered editor of the New York Times crossword, and a handful of the country's top solvers. It peels back the curtain on the meticulous craft of puzzle construction, particularly through the clever and charismatic puzzle maker Mer Regal. The documentary culminates at the American Crossword Puzzle Tournament. Oh man, the affairs that go on there.
Oh, 8 down, if you know what I mean.
Where the top contestants, including multi-time champions and a young prodigy, compete for the title. Yes, the quiet act of filling in squares feels like a high-stakes athletic event. Interspersed with competitions are interviews with celebrity enthusiasts like Bill Clinton, Jon Stewart, and the Indigo Girls, who share their personal obsession with the daily mental workout. Wordplay is a charming and insightful film that proves the intellectual pursuit of puzzles can be just as compelling as any mainstream sport. Watch it now, free with ads on Amazon Prime and Fossum.
I like that you were pitching this as just as compelling as any mainstream sport. I would just love to see people dressing up like in their Sunday like jersey to be like, I'm on the Will Shorts team. Yeah. Like that would be fantastic.
Filling an arena to watch two people filling out a crossword puzzle.
I mean, they've done this with esports, right? So we're not far off, but
Yeah,
I just
sure.
love nerds taking over the world. By the way, Will Shorts and Meryl Regal, those names have to be witness protection names. There's no other answer for this. Like, the dude is the editor of the New York Times Crossword, and his name is Bill Shorts. Like, come on.
Will Shorts, yes. That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. Truly terrible podcast from our awful company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and Tenapod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense uses the VLC Media Player, a cross-platform media player and streaming media server developed by the Videoland Project. Free and open source, be sure to check out VLC. I actually use Audacity and Audacious, but yes, I get the idea.
Oh, I'm sorry that I'm so beneath you for using VLC.
VLC is great.
Be every Tuesday and Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Please come join us. Bringing back the direwolf, I'm like, I don't know. Do we need the direwolves? Now, if you start thinking about, like, if you had like a bunch of switches, like feature flags, and I could just turn them off or on, sort of weird science style, now I'm in, 100% in. If I could have like 3D printer frame, I'd be like, I want to have like a cat that can fly, that also has sonar at night, like 100% in.
Except you don't want any of that.
Oh yeah, it sounds great. Kidding me? Even just to screw with my neighbors.
Your cat's going to go up and eat all the bats. You know what bats eat? Bats eat mosquitoes. Now you don't have anything eating your mosquitoes. Your worst nightmare has just come true.
All right. So the second one we're going to make.